Hi, I'm Mayor Jay Tibshraeny, and welcome to this edition of Chandler Inside and Out. Today, it's my pleasure to have in studio an economist, Dr. Lee McPheeters from ASU. I'm going to read kind of some of the stuff you're known for because there's so much of it. But Lee McPheeters is the director of the J.P. Morgan Chase Economic Outlook Center at Arizona State University and a research professor of economics. You've been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, The Economist, Business Week, the New York Times, and Newsweek, and you've appeared nationally on Good Morning America and CNN News, commenting on the economy of the Western United States. Forgive me if I left out a magazine or publication or a TV. I've had you on the show before. I've always appreciated talking about national economy, the state economy. We're going to do that again today, spend about a half hour chatting. But I think before we do, as I like to do in the past, maybe tell the audience a little bit about your background, how you got to ASU, those kind of things, and then we'll roll into the economy.
All right. Well, happy to be here. Appreciate the repeat invitation. Well, I've been at ASU for 4 decades now, and I have really seen a lot of growth, of course, in the institution. And in a way, that growth has really benefited me and a number of other faculty because in a larger institution, there's more opportunity for specialization. And in the world of academics, really, it is specialization, I think, that really adds value for the university. And my area of expertise and interest is in regional economics. Mm-hmm. And I came to ASU with the understanding that this, I was getting into a very much of a growth situation. And among all my forecasts that I've made, at least that one has panned out to be accurate. I'm right now, and have been for about the past decade, in the L. William Seidman Research Institute in the W.P. Carey School of Business. We have an endowment from J.P. Morgan Chase to focus on the economic outlook, and that's why we have the name the Economic Outlook Center, endowed by J.P. Morgan Chase. And we prepare forecasts every month and have been doing this since the mid-'80s on the western states. Of course, our focus is on Arizona, but we look at the economies, the main indicators. This would be job growth, personal income, employment by different categories such as construction, manufacturing. We publish that. We have a website and a web-based newsletter called the Western Blue Chip Economic Forecast. And then we try to look at the national economy every month as well with our website called Job Growth USA. And every month, we take the job growth data that are produced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we rank the states, we rank the metropolitan areas on percentage growth. You can also check the number of jobs created, the type of jobs, category, the industries, and so forth. And our data goes all the way back to about 1990. So we're really very much focused then on principally job growth, western states, Arizona, and have been doing that, as I say, for about a decade. And, really, I think from time to time have really been able to track how the Arizona economy is doing relative to the rest of the country.
I'm anxious to get into that. Before I do, I don't know if I've asked you before, do you still teach a class or classes, or is it strictly the research part?
Well, my designation has changed now to research professor. And in that capacity, then I am basically self-supporting in the L. William Seidman Research Institute. The people assigned there are supporting themselves with outside funding that comes into the university for various research projects, economic impact studies. And so we've done a number of studies for Sky Harbor Airport, Freeport, Raytheon, Boeing, you name it. We try to work with local businesses, and we try to, of course, get students involved in these projects. So my contact with students then is not in the classroom anymore. It is, strictly as a mentor on various research projects.
Interesting. Well, they're doing some good work along with your guidance and mentorship. I last had you here probably April of 2017.
That
We
would be,
talked
yeah.
about the state, obviously, and the state, local, and the U.S. economies in length. How would you compare where we're at today? And we're filming this and taping this in June of 2018. Where have we got come the last year, and maybe even compared to a few years ago? I mean, I feel positive about where we were going, but I don't have any statistics to back my feelings
Well,
up.
just focusing on Arizona. Arizona went into the Great Recession sooner than most states. We certainly dipped lower than most states, and we came out later than most states. And so it has taken a while to really get back all the lost jobs. And of course, compared to when that recession started, the end of 2007 and the first of 2008, that's a decade ago, and
Yes.
economies have changed. And I think that we can really feel um, pretty pleased with the way the Arizona economy has come back, recovered, the diversity that we see in the industry growth. Let me just give you an example,
Hmm.
okay? Um, Even though we lost more jobs in a percentage basis than practically any other state, I think at one point at the depths of the recession, we were ranked as 49th in the country in terms of job growth. Um, the most recent numbers we have looking at calendar 2017,
Hmm.
okay, we are ranking fourth among all states in gross domestic product, which is analogous to national GDP.
Wow.
We are fifth in personal income growth. We're fifth in job growth, sixth in population growth. And another important statistic, we are fifth in domestic migration. And what that means is that out of all the possible places that people that are relocating from one state to another can choose to go, Arizona is one of the top five destinations. The others, you could probably name them yourself: Florida, Texas, Washington State, North Carolina, and then Arizona. So, these are the growth states, but Arizona, I think, has really done exceptionally well just in the last couple of years, getting back into this category of top five leading growth states. Those would be the key indicators I would look at: personal income, employment. We're in the top five now, and certainly a big comeback from being in the bottom five at the depths of the recession.
Those are pretty amazing statistics that because we're comparing ourselves to all 50 states
That is correct.
and those are just pure numbers, not adjusted for the size
Right.
of the
On
state.
some of these, we're looking at growth rates.
Right.
Arizona's growth rate on job creation, Arizona's growth rate on personal income growth, for example. But domestic migration, that's an absolute number. Break it down to Maricopa County. Maricopa County, of course, is one of the fastest growing counties, according to our analysis of Census Bureau numbers. On net, Maricopa County attracts 200 new residents every day. And certainly you can understand with that kind of growth, how housing is strong, job growth is strong.
Right.
Basically, the overall economy is doing reasonably well, especially compared to where we were just a few years ago.
Yeah. Last time you were here, we talked about the job growth and how industries such as healthcare, finance, and insurance were some of the top performing sectors. Are they still performing good? Because we have those three, and then you mentioned Boeing. That would be the
Yeah,
industrial side.
yeah, that's what I was talking about when I said that we have a lot of diversity now. I think in years past we would have expected that Arizona's recovery would be driven by real estate and construction. Now, the interesting thing about it is that construction growth in the last couple of years has, in fact, been quite strong. Um, just, to throw some numbers out, over 7% growth in construction employment. That again puts Arizona in the top 5. But if you look at just the absolute number of new jobs, you ask the question, what industries are adding the most new jobs? Right at the top is healthcare. And when you look at manufacturing, very strong growth there. You don't get a lot of jobs created, but the growth rate for manufacturing has been very strong for Arizona. So by growth rate, we're one of the stronger states. In terms of job count, healthcare, finance are really right at the top, along with construction. Those 3 industries alone account for about half the new jobs that are being created right now. So construction is important,
Yeah.
but finance, healthcare really are, give you a much more diverse looking package in terms of analysis of what's going on in the state.
Because, a while back, or pre-recession time, back in the early 2000s, even 1990s, 1980s, it was always that construction growth, but that was fueled by the housing industry. And now, even though there's a lot of growth there, we're not dependent, it doesn't sound like, on housing to drive our economy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. Construction's still important. It's right now, one of the key sources of job growth, and compared to other states, as I said, we're in the top 5 for rate of growth of construction jobs, but that's not what is driving this economy. It is healthcare, it is finance, it's professional and business services, these sorts of jobs that are much more in touch, I think, with the 21st century economy.
Yeah, that's interesting. We still like that housing, but we're not going to be as
Yes.
susceptible to the next recession of falling so far like we did last time, because we were so dependent on that sector.
Yeah, well, we're certainly not in a situation where we are overbuilt with housing. If anything, it's the reverse. We still have, I think, a shortage of supply of that sort of medium to lower priced housing, the workforce type of housing. So the situation is we're attracting a lot of people, we're creating a lot of jobs, but those people, of course, need affordable housing, and
Right.
there's still sort of a crunch here. Businesses that are involved in real estate and construction, they have to make a profit, and they're still facing rising costs. And
Yeah.
so, there's somewhat of a crunch on supply right now.
Yeah, supply and demand.
Absolutely.
They're
yeah.
selling that supply probably quicker than they can build it then, I would assume.
Yeah, that's a very strong part of the market right now.
And you talked about our population growth. I know Maricopa County recently was voted as one of the fastest, if not the fastest, growing counties in the U.S. But a year ago when we visited, a little over a year ago, April of 2017, you said one thing missing from our recovery at the time was the population growth. It sounds like somebody took a cue from your statement and we're filling in that blank.
Well, there's a context there. In years past decades, we would have expected to see something in the range of 2.5 to maybe even 3.5% population growth, and we're simply not seeing that. We're still in the 1.6, 1.7% population growth. However, that's better than most places, and that gives us a population growth for the state over 100,000 per year, which is certainly very strong. But to say that what is driving this economy is just, super strong population growth, I don't think that would be accurate, because for Arizona, that would have to be 3 to 3.5%. We're not seeing that. But, I would say we don't really need it.
Yeah.
And kind of a corollary to that is our unemployment rate is a bit higher than the national average and some of our neighboring states, and that's because we do have people moving here. It takes a while to find a job, and as a result of that, this recovery still has not brought the very low unemployment rates that we've seen in past recoveries.
We'll be right back at you. I'm going to reintroduce the show, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about the unemployment rates.
Okay.
I'm Mayor J. Tipshraney. You're watching Chandler Inside and Out. Today I'm interviewing Dr. Lee McFeeters, an economist from ASU, talking about the local economy and the national economy. Again, Dr. McFeeters, thanks for being in Chandler today and talking about the economy. So the unemployment rate, where are we? Because it's fairly low, but we're still behind the national
Yeah,
average.
the national rate, most recent numbers we have, 4.1%. Arizona's rate, 4.9%. Chandler looking very strong, 3.6%. What we are seeing, I think, is in Phoenix, very strong growth in the metro area, the communities and cities that make up the Phoenix metropolitan area are doing very, very well. We have a complete, I wouldn't call it a disconnect, but when you look at what is happening with job growth, what is happening with the unemployment rate, and some of these other indicators, it is all of the action is in Phoenix. We've got the first quarter job growth numbers in for statewide job growth, and the state added about 65,000 jobs compared to the same period a year ago. 60,000 of them were in Phoenix metro area. What we're saying then is that the Phoenix metropolitan area is accounting for 90% of the growth in the state of Arizona. So we're saying here is a state that ranks in the top 5 of all states for job creation. And when you look at where that job creation is, it's in the Phoenix metro area. And then it is, in fact, you spread it out, it's in the city of Phoenix, but it's also very much in the East Valley, a lot of strength now in the West Valley, and of course Scottsdale. So the entire metropolitan area is benefiting. Unfortunately, the rest of the state, the Tucson area, just not doing as well. In fact, the interesting statistic on where the job growth is, the area with the highest pace of job creation is actually Prescott. A small community, of course, but their job growth has been pretty strong over the last several quarters. But certainly the state as a whole, really, if you break it down, it is Phoenix that is driving these very favorable numbers.
And that figure you gave us for the first quarter 2018, the 65,000, is that jobs increased over the past year
over
ago?
Over the past quarter, a year ago quarter. Yeah.
So it's 65,000 additional jobs to whatever that number was.
That's right.
Okay.
And we expect the economy to stay on that pace going right through 2018, so that at the end of the year, it's very likely, unless something bizarre happens, that we'll see that the Arizona economy has added anywhere from 65,000 to 70,000 new jobs. But as I say, don't be surprised if 85% of them are in the Phoenix metropolitan area.
There's still some challenges in the rural areas, as there seems to have been the last 10 to 20 years with their economic growth. Although Prescott is kind of an interesting example.
Yes, really, what we are seeing when we take I said Maricopa County adds about 200,000 residents a day. When you get into those numbers and you say, where are these people coming from? The number one source of new residents for Maricopa County is other counties in Arizona. So what we have then is that the rural counties are suffering not only from weaker job growth, they are actually losing population to the strong growing urban area.
Yeah.
And that growth is going the wrong direction for,
That's an interesting
for
statistic.
the outlying counties. I think if you ask people, Maricopa County is growing rapidly, where are these people coming from? Their answer would be California.
Yeah.
And well, that's correct if you say where are they coming from out of state. But if you actually look at the numbers, the largest source, about 40,000, something in that ballpark, and that is not a net number, by the way, but anyway, are moving into the metro area here from other Arizona counties. Tucson, of course, and the Flagstaff area in particular, we're drawing workers and residents right now from those other parts of the state.
So Tucson and Flag are also drawing into
We,
their.
we are drawing residents
Oh,
from,
we are drawing.
yeah, here
So,
in Maricopa County.
so Tucson's got a net.
Unfortunately, yes, Tucson has been very flat for this recovery period. They're still in the position where they need to recover all lost jobs, and that has not happened. I mean, most every state has recovered all lost jobs. Most large metro areas have recovered all the lost jobs from the recession, but the Tucson area is still struggling with job growth.
So we did pass that job, the jobs we lost. So somewhere in the last year and a
We
half,
did,
we
yeah,
passed.
about this time in 2016, actually.
Okay. So the 200,000 population increase, is that a annual number or
Now for Arizona, it's 100,000 new residents net.
net?
So as you know, people come to Arizona, people leave Arizona, and after it's all over, the head count of residents, and that includes new babies, is up by, I believe, for 2017 by 108,000.
Okay.
So that's not, that's 1.6, 1.7% growth. That's not the 3% growth that would give you 250,000 new residents. But that's very solid. There's
Yeah.
only a handful of states. There's fewer than 10 states that are even in that category of the 1.5, 1.6, 1.7% population growth.
That gives us an opportunity maybe not to have a big bubble by not having such growth, which would then fuel that housing thing.
Yeah, I think that is correct. It's strong, sustainable growth,
Yeah.
and I think sustainability is important. This is a state that does suffer from bubbles, as I mentioned. In the recession of 2009. We hit rock bottom. We were number 49 in the country in job creation. Nevada was number 50, another kind of bubble state. And we've had to claw our way out of it, but I think we've done it with diverse job growth across a number of industries, and it's worked out very well.
Yeah, so we're kind of balancing our economy as we've come out of this.
Yeah, I would say that this downturn really gave us an opportunity to sort of re-engineer the state. Nobody really did it; the market did it.
Right.
But the kind of companies that moved here were very much different, I think, than the companies that we'd had in place in years past. And it's especially in the finance area, the high-tech area. We've always been a high-tech center, but we've attracted a lot of additional kind of newer high-tech companies, a lot of software development and so on. It's all been to the good.
Yeah, speaking of those kind of companies, Chandler, we have a lot of the driverless car technology occurring in our city, with Waymo, and you have Intel and what have you. Where do you see that sector kind of going?
Well, it's had its sort of ups and downs, I think, in the last few months. But I think, some things are just technologically inevitable. If you go into the showroom right now, the cars you're looking at have a lot of automatic features built in terms of staying in the right lane, automatic braking, warnings, and so forth. And I think that this is just going to continue to progress. How far away are we from having just thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of driverless cars? I think we're a bit away from that because I think that technology is changing so fast for the individual drivers that actually buy their car in the showroom that there's really two things going on in the sense of, regular dealers sold automobiles versus specialist vehicles that would be available through Uber or other types of services. So, it's very much a wait and see sort of thing, but it's all inevitable, no question about it.
And you bring up a really good point that I try to make with people that ask me about the driverless car. Like, and that is they're taking segments of that technology and it's already on the showroom floor.
That's
They've
right.
already monetized it, whether
That's
it's
right.
automatic braking or the lane.
That's right.
So,
And for whatever reason, Americans like their cars. And if they had a car that was safer, had various features of automatic vehicle control that were built in that made their car safer, but it was still their car, I think that's going to be appealing for quite a while to people.
yeah. So we got about 3 minutes left. So last time you were here, we talked a little bit about that we were a couple years away from full economic recovery. And I'm happy if it's a slower recovery and it lasts another 10 years. But where do you see us on full economic recovery, or even if you want to address it in terms of how far out can you look to see that this economy is still purring along?
Well, let me give you a little bit of background. The longest expansion in U.S. history in terms of business cycle recovery was the 10-year expansion from 1991 to 2001. There was a period in 1991, kind of the George Bush administration. The Federal Reserve got a little overactive. Interest rates went quite high. There was a recession. Then we went into a 10-year expansion. That's the longest expansion on record. Now we are in another expansion that is the second longest expansion on record. This started in 2009, and we are now in 2018, and so we are 9 years into it. If a summer, it's a kind of a summer to summer sort of timeline. If a year from now we are still expanding, then this will be the longest expansion of all time. So we are now in the second longest expansion of all time. So the question among economists is, can we keep it going a year from now and surpass that 10-year expansion? We're now in the second longest expansion, and so we've got another year to go. And so what are the risks? The risks, I think, are very much on the policy side. The Federal Reserve, again, is worried about inflation. They seem to be putting on the brakes in terms of interest rate hikes. Everyone expects interest rates are going to be creeping up. That can't be good for housing, and that, of course, affects Arizona. But I think that if you look at what economists are saying, the probability of recession this year, I think that the vast consensus is under 20% chance of recession. Going into 2019, it's something in the range of 25% chance of recession. I think there's reluctance to go beyond that, but I think that most analysts right now, looking at where we are, have the sense that we can keep going as we have been going for another year, and the current expansion then will become the longest expansion on record. Will it begin to sort of weaken? Probably will. Will there be a recession and a downturn in indicators? Unless the Federal Reserve really makes a mistake, or unless there are some catastrophic policy decisions, and we know that's always possible in Congress, the executive branch, you've got all these players, and then you've got outside external factors, North Korea, the Middle East, things can happen. But setting all that aside, I think that we're on track to see the longest recovery. And of course, Arizona follows the national business cycle, and I think that we're looking forward to another year or so of pretty solid, sustainable growth.
Great. I think we've covered our half hour. I think we could probably have another 2 hours because it's really interesting. But thanks for being in Chandler today. As always, I personally appreciate you taking the time to share your interesting and important facts with our constituents here in Chandler.
Thank you. Always good to be with you.
Thank you. I'm Mayor Jay Tibshirani. You've been watching Chandler Inside and Out. Hope you enjoyed today's programming. Very important to the overall well-being of our community and our nation. Until I see you again, take care and be safe.